We are a Shoreditch, New York, Amsterdam, and Teesside-based company, 50-plus employees, been going since 2008, and we specialize in dynamic rich media, interactive videos, interactive merchandising, pretty much all the pretty stuff that you see on sites, and we've got about 200 brands currently live. So a few brands you'll recognize. I mean, there's an awful lot more that are not up there. My stuff is mostly things that you can ideally do next week, maybe next month, or in some cases, I suppose, maybe 3 to 6 months from now, just to generally improve iteratively lots and lots of little parts of your website. So from a multi-screen perspective, I mean, ultimately the entire world shifted a little while back now for, I think anybody outside of e-commerce started shifting to responsive web design. I think for smaller boutique, smaller one-offs, people who get to write their entire code base, I think it was an easy transition to make 3 or 4 years ago. I think for anybody who's working on a big platform that scales and globally, then frankly making this transition, this is Charlotte Olympia, where it's a single code base that gives you brand consistency and ultimately reuse of your same content across all devices, is obviously a massive fundamental transition. It's not an easy one to do, and if any of you, I think, have got a design sensibilities, I think the hardest thing is around workflow and letting go a little bit. So I think you're used to seeing perfect PSD mock-ups of exactly what you will get built, whereas in the responsive world, it's all about a kind of a feel, a general sentiment. Even some of my favorite sites out there, if I do that thing where I wiggle the browser width a bit, I can find bits where the design isn't quite as perfect in other places. So I think there is a fundamental shift in this way. There is an entire talk I could do, probably for about 3 hours, on responsive images. If you're not familiar with it, there is a current massive change going to happen this year. It's going to be implemented in all the major browsers by the end of the year, which is going to make responsive images the reality which I and various of my colleagues have been looking forward to for about 4 years. But it pretty much means you can take a single asset and use it in every single device, in every single scenario, and it will be optimized to fit that device, and it will be lightweight, and it will look great on mobile and fantastic on a big screen as well. This is Littlewood site. If you go to their Lister page, there are certain things I think you do with tablets that you do with nothing else, which is if you see something you're interested in on a tablet, on a Lister page, for example, you will pinch zoom to go in. You don't do that on a browser. I don't think many people do on a browser anyway. What these guys have done at Littlewoods is that they have made their images quite lightweight, so when you first load the Lister, it loads really, really quickly. But if you then pinch to go in, the obvious thing happens, which is the image quality isn't terribly good. But what they've done is they recognize when you've zoomed in on a certain area of the screen, and they actually reload. So you get a fuzzy image, and then a moment after you've effectively said, I care about that one, it reloads that single image and gives you a really pristine, crisp example of that particular image. Little touches like that, I think, make the world of difference. Speed and clarity. It's that balance, I think, that we're all pretty much striving for. This is Tom Ford selling lipsticks. Left-hand side is mobile experience, very visual, very rich. As you put your mouse over each of the what do you call it, a lip model? Whatever the proper term is for a person who has their lips video a lot, they all do something. So some of them blow kisses, some of them put lipstick on, some of them bite their lip a little bit. And all they're doing is they're adapting that same content. So they're automatically ripping thumbnails out of the video. If your device is relatively small, if you're on a low connection, you just get the static image. Still looks great. If you're on a bigger screen, faster connection, then you get a fully interactive and immersive experience. Now, from mobile, I think there's an awful lot of conversations. Is it a device? Is it a bandwidth? Is it a context? From my perspective, this book here set the tone for me. It is a warning that your users are probably being distracted by the rest of the world at the same time as shopping your site. They've probably got one thumb, because I don't think many people browse the internet with their phones with 2 thumbs, and they've probably only got it's one eye. Half their attention is more than likely on you. So Dunelm on the desktop shows you everything that's of interest. So there's things like, is it in stock? What's the delivery options? Here's all your rich media options. And this can include things like 360 and video. But on their mobile, it's a completely cut down, as you can imagine, experience. There's much less real estate. Even though it's high res, you don't really have that much to play because it ends up being far too small to see. But what would happen in here is you can literally, with one thumb, very happily go through all of the images in there. If you double tap, you can zoom in. You get to have totally engaging, single-handed, while doing other things, preferably not driving. But I think in terms of context, I think the way that we consider the engagement and the interaction is probably fairly crucial from a technical perspective as well as anything else. Category pages and Lister pages and product details page. are all a fairly crucial part of the standard journey. In this one, Sweaty Betty, what happens is it's a campaign content that's ultimately distributed to your screens. As you mouse over certain elements, like the one on the right-hand side, some more information pops up. On the second slide in this carousel, then what you can start to do is you can literally start to shop from within your content. So there's little hotspots where there are interesting points. That hooks up to a data feed and shows you things like product details, page type data, but within a little pop-up. And what it means is that you can say, I'm interested in this. It pops up this really nice little quick view that then shows you all of the rich media associated with it. You can add it to your basket and you can purchase it. And then when you close all that down, you are still in the same campaign as you were. So one of the problems that I think sometimes happens is a campaign will lead you, almost like on the breadcrumb trail. You'll go for the thing you like, and you will leave that experience of that campaign. Buy it, but if it's part of an overall outfit or some kind of inspirational piece, at that point you then effectively walked people away from the rest of your campaign. So what we try and do is ultimately bring all of it into a single point so that you can actually do the entire of your shopping experience from that one inspirational piece, if that made sense for you. Tiny things like this one. I think Lister Page is quite often not really given the place it should have. So if you've done a search for something and your commerce system has brought back, let's say, 40 results, there's probably a reason why you've done that, right? Otherwise, you just bring back 3 or 8. The standard behavior is that you F-scan. Well, it's an F for me anyway. But what you can start to do if you've got more interactive, engaging experiences is what should happen on the right-hand side is that this model, if you click on the different colorways, the different swatches, for each of those within the lister, it will show you an indication of what they look like. There is a really cool version on M&P, which is, if you think of the item you're actually trying to sell, how a pushchair folds is fundamental to most people, unless you have some enormous car like a Land Rover or something. But how that pushchair folds is utterly fundamental to the way that you buy it. If you put your mouse over that in Mums and Papa's site, you literally get to see it collapse in front of you. So you can go over every single one and without having to go any further, figure out if this has met one of your primary requirements, which is ease of use. Charlotte Olympia, they ultimately combine colorways and alternate views and an awful lot of things like this. Product page content is king. So Tom Ford luxuriate in space. When you go to their stores, when you come to their website, there is an awful lot of white space. This is actually the zoomed in one. Before this, you actually end up with a little bit of detail, and then as soon as you click on it, it takes over the entire screen. Because let's face it, if you're going to spend $3,000 on a bag, if you don't love it when you see it, you probably don't care about if it's waterproof or what the buckles are made of or whatever. When you go to their website on a mobile device, it's a responsive site. You see the same imagery being served in a completely different context, but with the exact same brand theme going on behind it. Halfords, there's a before and after this one as well, which is, because of the nature of the item you're trying to sell, it's very wide, a very naturally landscape object. So before, it fits into maybe 2/3 of the screen, and there's a column on the right-hand side. There's a little button that toggles that effectively says, instead of showing me the technical details to this complex product, just let me look at it in many ways. Get the rest of the details out of the way. I was going to make a few suggestions in terms of your own analytics and your own data. Many people, I think, are tracking for devices, but one thing I was going to say from recent client projects is that very few people are tracking browser widths that are not on devices. So they know if you're on a certain width mobile device, like if you're on an iPhone or if you're on a Samsung Galaxy, but do consider that people on desktop devices probably have got their natural tendencies to have different widths. And so I think you probably should be setting up some secondary metrics to measure how popular certain ranges of dimension of browser are and make sure that your site looks really good on that as well. So I don't think it's just about mobile and tablet. And in terms of rich things like zoom and spin and video, please make sure you're tracking what's actually happening behind the scenes. We've had anecdotal data from a load of our clients saying things like, I think if you zoom in, you're 70% more likely to buy. If you spin, you're 30% more likely to buy. But I know an awful lot of people who are not actually tracking these stats along with their conversion metrics. So I think these kind of things are things you can probably start doing next week more than anything else. Make sure you're doing it, because if nothing else, it helps you understand the value of your investment in your rich media. Inspirational content. This is a Michelle fan video. So she's got 5 million followers on YouTube. L'Oreal gave her own brand. And what they're doing in this one is they're taking that social following, and as you walk through the video, cue points mean that on the right-hand side, whatever she is using at that point in time becomes in a product panel. So we can go into one of our back offices and say, at 3 seconds, she's doing this, please display it. And you can literally then go in, like you would have seen, and add to basket from within this. So within one 4-minute segment, if you quite like whatever it was that she was doing up there, then you can pretty much shop the entire thing. And if it's like an eye curler and all the rest of this stuff at the same time. But that one's definitely worth looking at on the video side of things. And my very last one, again, perceptual context. So popular theme, meme off the internet a little while back was best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google search results. There are many ways to bring people to your site, but frankly, search engines are still a very, very important part, I would have thought, in terms of your overall entrance into your funnel. Please consider that for somebody doing a fairly loose search and clicking on image, they may well come straight through to your category page. This might be their first view of your site. It's a landing page, not just a category page. If they do a very specific search, they may well go straight to your PDP. So consider that that is also a landing page. And my very last tiny one, there is an entire thing you can do with dynamic media systems, which I've been working this in for 7 years now between Amplience and Adobe, and almost nobody ever does this, but there are ways in setting up dynamic media systems to allow you to do apparent image requests. So most people photograph based on skew, because that's the way photography studios are set up, but there are ways in which you can actually make that image request actually represent the thing that you're trying to sell, if that made sense. So the kind of stuff you normally put in the tags of your images, your alt tags, you can actually bake into your dynamic media request, if that makes sense. Thank you very much.